John, how goes it, buddy?
Things are good, Brandon. What's going on out there?
Things are always good with you. Things are always good with you. That's why I like talking to you so much, because everything's great in John's world. Right,
Well,
John?
I'm not going to come on to one of our talks and just start moaning, right? That would be a bit of a downer.
Oh, everything sucks. Oh. Yeah, fair deal. Fair deal. Yeah, everything's great, man. I'm happy. I'm happy you're doing well. Let's dive in here. Hi, guys. How are you? You know what we're going to do? We're going to talk about something that not a lot of people talk about, except if they're taking an immigration course, usually. We're going to talk about the 3 pillars of immigration. So first off, let's define what that means, and let's talk about why this is important and how you can use this to your advantage. The first thing that comes to mind with me is actually, how I do a consultation with people and understand where they're going to fit in and all of that. So why don't we just go from there? So first off, John, 3 pillars of immigration. What are they?
Well, guys, you could actually just visualize like some old, funky Greek temple, and you have 3 pillars holding it up, and the temple is actually our immigration system. And we really do have 3 separate sections, which contributes to the structure of our immigration system. And the main is economic. We talk about economic mostly in this course, because it's the majority of immigrants to Canada come through the economic programs. And it's also the one that the government has the most control over. They can set targets or whatnot. There's another one, which is sponsorship family immigration. And, Canadian citizens and permanent residents have the right to sponsor certain family members. So government has a little less control over the numbers there, because I'm a Canadian citizen. If I want to sponsor a foreign spouse to come to Canada, it's my right. The government can't say, oh, you can't do it because of our immigration targets. It's my right to do that. And the third is refugee. Caveat here, I don't practice in the refugee area, but it is a significant part of our immigration system. And within that pillar, the government also sets targets every year. And that is broken down between people who just arrive in Canada and claim refugee status, and people who are sponsored overseas through various agencies like the United Nations Resettlement Program. One of the things, though, people do not know, may not know about is, and Brandon can again back me up on this, sometimes we have clients who are eligible under both family and economic programs.
Man, you were reading my mind. I was literally going to say that.
Well, great minds think alike.
Well, really. Thanks, man. Yeah, go for it. Keep going.
So let's just paint a scenario. Let's say you've got someone who is, and if you've seen some of our earlier recordings about express entry, you know that say someone's eligible under federal skilled worker. They could be, 29, and they get really high marks in English, and they've got 3 years work experience, and they've got a master's degree under their belt. That's kind of like your perfect candidate for federal skilled worker, and they are going to be a good candidate for that. But let's also say they've married a Canadian citizen. So then they have options under family class. They could be sponsored by their Canadian citizen spouse, or they could apply independently through the federal skilled worker. Now, what we do when we see someone like that, we say, look, Brandon and I operate from the same
mantra.
Fastest, cheapest, easiest, right? We want to find a solution for our clients, get you permanent residence as fast as we can, simplest application, cheapest for you. So using that analogy further, that example further, our client may say, look, I don't want to do an English language test. I don't want to go get my qualifications assessed. I don't want to get all my letters from my employer. And we'd say, if you don't want to do any of that, you should go the spousal route, right? Because the ability to apply under a spousal category is simply the bona fides of the relationship, right? When you do a spousal application, language, education, age, all that stuff, really not taken into account. However, they may come back to us and say, I don't want to have to apply through the spousal category for whatever reason. Maybe the relationship is new or rocky or whatever. But then we say, well, then maybe you do want to go federal skilled worker, but that person has options. Right, Brandon?
Oh man, gosh, so many things I agree with. You know, I'm going to take a bit of a detour on this. Sorry, I'm going off topic a little bit, but it won't be. It's going to be a little detour, and I'll bring it back. So, based on what John was saying, yes, you can qualify under different pillars of the immigration system. Um, you know, a lot of people don't understand what we do, and I think that John hit the nail on the head. Fastest, cheapest, easiest. My whole deal and John's whole deal, and anybody who's an immigration professional, and I underline the word professional, their whole goal is to get you through this bureaucratic process as quickly as possible. And what that means is as quickly as if, say, you're in family class and economic class, right? We're aware, of processing times and what might be priorities. Like, for instance, earlier, a little while back, the immigration department for family class for spousal sponsorships, I've seen this trend over a number of years, and I'm sure John will back this up, where things will get slow, and then it'll get in the media, and you'll get a lot of like, we're really separated and this is hard on our family, and then the government's like, got to get these sorted out. Have people like in media crying, separated family members, like not good. So then they go and then they speed it up again, and they'll introduce a new measure. They'll make some announcements. Not so long ago, they hired 60 plus officers just to deal with overseas spousals. So taking that into account, we can say, well, maybe that might be a little quicker for you. And maybe they're in the slower time where it's going to be a little slower, and express entry is moving a little quicker. So maybe we can look at that as something. So that would be the quickest. The cheapest, John was talking about language tests, WES assessments. Maybe you don't want to do that, right? The government fees are going to be pretty much the same, right? So that's kind of apples or oranges, but you're going to have apples or oranges, apples and apples, I guess, right? Oranges and oranges, some sort of the same fruit. But either way, you're going to, you're going to have to other expenses, right? You're going to have the educational assessment, this, that. You're going to have to spend for this, all of those different things, when you could actually be going through a better pathway. Quickest, easiest, cheapest. I think we've covered all of those, right? So that's generally what we do, and there's different pillars in terms of the way that this system is organized. You can actually go through those different areas. Like, family class is always going to exist. Economic class, refugee, it's always going to exist, right? But the priorities on the government, depending on what those pillars are, will change, right? A good indication of that was Canadian Immigration and Citizenship, CIC, IRCC, right? We threw the name refugees in there now. That was right around the time when a new government took over, and they actually changed that, maybe setting out or hinting as to what maybe their priorities might be going forward in that respect. Yeah. So I just went off on a tangent there. Is there anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, but I would simply add that when you're looking to apply for permanent residence here, and you find that you are eligible under a program, that's great. But know that, depending on your circumstances, you could be eligible for more than one program. And I'm talking about not just one program in economic and one program in family. You could find yourself eligible under multiple multiple programs within economic immigration, especially if you have a job offer in Canada. It's important to know these things, because, again, as Brandon said, processing times vary wildly. They ebb and flow over the years with political headwinds. It's important to know your options before launching into the process of applying for PR.
The other thing I would add too is that depending on a person's situation, like if you have somebody in Canada, you're going to have other things that you're going to have to deal with. And what I mean by that is that, for instance, somebody comes in and they'll have like, I'm in Canada, I want to remain in Canada, but I also want my permanent residency. So we got to deal with the temporary residence issue, which will keep them here, keep them working, doing all of that. And then on top of that, then we're planning to basically get them through the PR phase. And, those things are intertwined, right? And this is where knowing what the pillars are and the strategy and how you can actually use those depending on the priority of the government of the day is actually very important. So for instance, using that example, I don't want to be too specific with people's cases, but you could have somebody and they're on a temporary basis and they might be going through some sort of process to extend. But then once they get, depending on how the draws are going for PR, they could get their ITA, submit a complete application, and then do a bridging open work permit as long as they have enough time to be able to bridge that over with another work permit. So this is where the planning comes in and being able to understand that. I'm going to say one other thing, because I don't know about you, but this comes up sometimes with me with people in Canada. And it's a bit of a warning because I actually dealt with this recently with a question. Some people will hear things within different communities about, maybe something's going on back home and they're here as a student, for instance, and they're like, oh, I want to apply under the refugee category. And I always caution people on that, because I think sometimes some people are a little too liberal with the H&C and the refugee and protected persons category. What I mean by that is that, these are like a protected person. This is pretty serious stuff, right? In terms of when you make a statement of claim in that area. And again, just as John was saying, we don't work primarily in this area, but we know enough about it that if you're going to play that card, so to speak, make sure that you actually fit into that category. Because I know that there's some things that I've seen over the years where people will say, oh, you can do this and that's fine. And yes, maybe you can do that, but it has ramifications on that. Like, for instance, not being able to return to your country of origin because, you need to be protected. You're not going home, right? In that respect, right? And if you do that, you're putting that in jeopardy. So I always caution that, because I'll have people that are, say, students that are in Canada, something will go on and they're looking to complete their PR. And then somebody say, oh, you can apply for this. And I'm like, understand what that is and be careful, because I can tell you, if you play the refugee card and you're a failed refugee claimant and maybe you're young in your age, you're going to have that, you're going to wear that label when you want to go to other places around the world as a failed refugee claimant. And it is actually asked on the forms for a reason, right? So, yeah, and I want to be careful with that, because, again, I don't want to take away from that category, because there is a lot of people that require this. But I really think that, that, and the H&C, I don't know about you, people. Do you get this, John? Like, people call, oh, I want to file this H&C, humanitarian compassion. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's so many of these programs are based on a personal narrative, right? What has happened in your life that makes you feel that you are subject to persecution or a threat to your person? I mean, I'm using similar language to what you have to actually write down in your narrative when you first make a refugee claim, or you're submitting an H&C application. And then you're entering into the territory of discretion and trying to convince an officer of the legitimacy of your claim. And if you don't have a well-founded sense of persecution or political persecution, or discrimination based on religion or sexual practices, you're entering into a quagmire, which you don't necessarily need to be in. Now, a lot of, as Brandon said, a lot of advice is floating around certain communities in Canada. Some of it may be entirely well-meaning, that your friend or your pal or your classmate or your worker is trying to, do good things for you. The problem is that they may not know anything about how the system actually works. Someone like Brandon or I, or a lawyer or another RCIC.
Or on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, on top of that, they might not know, because, you know, these things are tracked when you're making these claims.
Oh yeah.
People understand what's going on in different areas of the world, and like the United Nations and different governments are cooperating based on information and how how things are changing fluidly, and that would actually form part of your you know, that actually rolls into the decision process of this of your statement of claim.
Yeah, there's a record of everything. So my final point on this is, you know, if you have something very complicated and you think you may fit into the refugee category, don't go and file right away. Go and talk to someone. Go and
Yeah,
talk.
understand it.
Go and talk to someone who's an immigration consultant who specializes in refugee claims or has experience, or a lawyer, or if you don't have a lot of money, go and see staff at one of the Immigrant Settlement Services Society, where they'll be able to direct you to a professional who does pro bono work or charges very little. But it's you're looking at a world of hurt.
But make sure you're using a professional.
Yes.
And again, I just want to kind of just, you know, say something to there. Yes, if you don't have the ability to do that, there might be other ways to get funding on that. But don't be talking to somebody at a settlement service that may or may not have the training to be able to do that. Get some professional advice first off.
Sorry, my point was, go to the settlement service. They may have connections to people who are professionals who do this on a pro bono basis.
Because it's a big card to play. All right, let's leave it at that. I think we're kind of went off. That's why I like talking to having these conversations, because it was just a 15-minute. It's a riff. I don't want to call it a rant. It's more of a riff. Okay, John. Are we done?
We are done. We will see you next time, everybody. Great talking to all of you and having you come and listen to us. And we'll see you soon. Yeah,
take care, guys. Hope everyone's keeping well. Thanks again, John. Good to see you too. I always just like catching up for these things, man.
Take it easy,
Brandon. Guys. Take care, John.